Hey y'all, welcome to the Messy Studio. Come on in and see what's going on. Howdy y'all. Well, as I alluded to in my previous bowl debacle, it's time for another episode of Turn Talk. I've been planning on talking about this subject for about a year now, and that is, how thick do you turn a bowl? Or how thin, as the case may be. That's a good question. How thin do you turn a bowl? Yes, 10 wood turners, you're likely to get 10 different responses. However, that said, it actually depends on a number of things. There are only a handful of reasons, seriously, only a handful of reasons to turn a bowl less than a quarter to 3/8 inch wall thickness. For utilitarian purposes, I like, and as do my customers, they like wall thicknesses on their bowls. They want to have a little bit of heft to them, and they like the wall thickness to be anywhere from a quarter to 3/8 of an inch. Very seldom will I get smaller than that. The most recent exception being this piece of Bradford pear. This edge, the wall thickness is about 1/8 of an inch. If that. It's dangerously thin, and where I've cut the groove for this band, it's even thinner than that. It's about a 1/16. I said there were a handful of reasons for turning a bowl or for turning a piece with a thin wall. One such reason would be for those that are making cowboy hats. Those have to be thin because they've got to be shaped. And it keeps the weight down. A lot of people wear those things. So they need to be probably about a 1/16 of an inch thick, thereabouts. You might could get as thick as 3/32. I haven't turned any of those. I don't care to turn any of those. That's just not my style. Another reason for turning thin, like you can see light through it thin, 1/16 of an inch thereabouts, is if you're making lampshades. The only other reason, seriously, that I can think of for turning a bowl less than a quarter inch thick is, well, okay, there's two more reasons. One, to prove to yourself that you can do it. I've done it. I don't care to do it again, even though I did this by accident. I did it again. I just wasn't my plan. So that's one. Prove to yourself that you can. And most turners need to experience that at least once. Just because they've got to know their limitations. If you don't know your limitations, you're probably not going to be as safe as you should. The only other reason that I can think of, other than those I've already listed, for turning a really thin wall in a piece is for other turners. Basically a bragging kind of thing. Showing this to your turning club or whatever, saying, oh, look how thin I made this. If that's what floats your boat, that's fine. I couldn't care less. I reached self-actualization years ago. I don't need the attaboy praise of wood turning club members or other wood turners telling me that with those positive stroke kind of things. Yeah, positive strokes are nice, and I love the comments that I get from my viewers. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, you do something like that, turn a really thin wall piece to brag so that you can get comments. We all know people like that. I'm just not one of them. The only other reason for turning a bowl with a thin wall is accident, and they happen. Luckily, I was able to keep this one from blowing up. But seriously, Back to the question. Okay, you've told us the only few reasons to make them thin, like 1/8 inch or less. So how thick should they really be? Well, as I mentioned earlier, the vast majority of my customers prefer wall thicknesses in their pieces a 1/4 to 3/8 of an inch. I try to stay around 3/8 of an inch for utilitarian pieces, just because they're more likely to hold up in the long run. We're talking about pieces that people are using for salad bowls or for whatever, and the thicker that you've got that wall, the less apt it is to warp or to crack or to split, based on my experience. Your mileage may vary. But 3/8 of an inch thereabouts is about the ideal range for a utilitarian bowl. If it's just stuff that you're throwing change and keys into on your dresser, 1/4 inch is fine. So for the new turners out there, don't get, at least for a while, don't be intrigued or enthralled or don't feel challenged by people you see turning really thin wall bowls and say, oh, I've got to do that. I've got to make a thin wall bowl. No, you don't. Unless that's just what you want to do. You really don't. It's not really necessary at all. I appreciate you watching this episode of Turn Talk. I kept it short for a couple of reasons. I've said everything really that needs to be said, and rambling on wouldn't really serve any purpose. In an upcoming episode here very soon, speaking of this bowl right here, my little darling piece of Bradford pear, I do love this wood. I really do. I can't wait to turn some more. The stuff that I have out here that I need to process, I know is not going to have this kind of curl in it, but c'est la vie. But I do have a plan for this. I've got some ideas on what I can do to fix it. I'm going to chuck it back up. I'm going to take my point tool and, well, you're just going to have to wait and see, aren't you? Because I do intend to try to fix this, because if I can fix it to my satisfaction, I'm going to be donating this piece to the Marvelous McKenna cause. This will be one up for auction if it turns out all right. So that's my plan. Stick with me and see how it comes out.